Coming up on Arirang News, the government says that when South Korea starts vaccinations next month, the first to get them will be frontline health workers and senior citizens, with the general public to get them in the second half of the year. The Education Ministry announces its plans for safely reopening schools in the spring for in-person classes. High school seniors will go to school every day, and there'll be tens of thousands of people hired to take care of temperature checks and disinfection. And the city of Jeonju has created a digital twin of itself so it can simulate the effects of environmental and infrastructure projects, but also so people can take virtual tours of the city's cultural sites. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for tuning in to Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. South Korea reported 497 new cases of COVID-19 on Thursday. This is a significant increase from the number of cases a few days ago, an increase largely accounted for by clusters linked to an unregistered missionary school in Daejeon. Officials note that the numerical trend in cases has become unstable. Of today's new cases, 479 were locally transmitted, and most were in the greater Seoul area. 18 were from overseas. The total number of cases to date is closing in on 77,000. 8 more people died, raising the death toll to 1,386. South Korea has reaffirmed its commitment to safely reopening schools in the spring so that kids don't lose ground on their education and parents have a solution for childcare. In a briefing Thursday, the Ministry of Education announced concrete plans. Han Sung-woo has the details.
Under level 2 social distancing or lower, kindergartners along with first and second graders in South Korea will be allowed to go to school for in-person classes in the spring. The start of the school year won't be postponed either.
Unlike last March, remote learning is now available at all schools nationwide, so the school year will begin in March as planned.
Recent scientific findings showing COVID-19 infections are less likely to occur in schools and among children have prompted the government to gradually reopen schools, first for those requiring more care. Students with special needs will be able to attend class under level 2.5 social distancing or lower at the school's discretion. As for high school seniors, the National College Entrance Exam is set to be held without any delays on November 18th. Seniors, as they did last year, are to attend school every day. But how will this shift towards face-to-face learning be safely carried out?
Roughly $170 million will be put in to increase the number of personnel responsible for checking temperatures and disinfecting schools to 50,000.
The Education Ministry also announced earlier on Tuesday that some 2,000 teachers on temporary contracts will be placed in classes with more than 30 young elementary school kids so that the students can be spaced out. In addition, more after-school programs and care centers on flexible schedules will be run for nearly 460,000 kids to ease the pressure of childcare on parents. The ministry also plans to improve the current educational infrastructure by expanding AI-based learning tools, increasing access to high-speed internet, and even pushing for new laws regarding remote learning. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
And South Korea has announced more details on its vaccination campaign to start next month. First to get the vaccines will be frontline medical workers and those working at nursing homes. The general public can get their shots starting in the second half of the year, with the aim of having 70% of the population inoculated by November. Our Kim Do-yeon has the latest.
The Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency has released its plans for vaccination, confirming frontline medical workers as the first group to get the shots. The shots will be given starting next month, and the plan is divided into quarters. Over 65s and those who work with the elderly are among those who will get the vaccine in the first 2 quarters. The rest of the general public is set to start receiving the shots in the latter half of the year.
Inoculations prioritize lowering the death rate by considering the risk for the elderly and stopping the spread at high-risk facilities from leading to regional outbreaks.
The very first shots will be given at the National Medical Center in Central Seoul next month, before being expanded to 3 other hospitals in the country. This is for an estimated 50,000 people. Following in the first quarter are 780,000 residents and workers of nursing homes and 440,000 in medical response teams starting mid-March. Vaccines from AstraZeneca and Pfizer will be obtained through the COVAX facility for the earliest stage. In the second quarter, people aged 65 or older and those working at or using high-risk facilities for the elderly or disabled are next in line, a group of more than 9 million. In addition, those working at neighborhood clinics and pharmacies will be able to get their shots. For the second quarter, the country plans to roll out Moderna and Janssen vaccines to boost the supply. Pfizer is set to arrive Korea by the latter half of the year.
Starting from the second half of the year, we will expand inoculations for all citizens considering the supply of vaccines and how inoculation went in the first half.
The government also stated that anyone who has to leave the country will be able to get their shots after a thorough evaluation of the situation. So far from COVAX and the 4 vaccine producers, the country has secured shots for 56 million people, with the government in talks with Novavax for vaccines for an additional 20 million people to provide room for safety. If the process goes according to the plan, 70% of the country will be immune to COVID-19 by November, but the health authorities added that the goal is to speed up the process as much as possible. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Despite the economic fallout from the pandemic, South Korea's Samsung Electronics and internet portal Naver performed strongly throughout last year. The key to Samsung's success was solid demand for memory chips, while Naver reaped the benefit of people staying home. Kim Sung-min reports.
South Korean tech giants Samsung Electronics and Naver on Thursday both posted sharp increases in earnings for 2020. Samsung Electronics has estimated last year's operating profits to be the 4th largest on record at around $32.5 billion. That is a jump of almost 30% from the previous year, despite the economic backlash from COVID-19. Sales edged up just shy of 3%, amounting to some $213 billion. In the fourth quarter of last year, Samsung posted an on-year jump of 26% in operating profits, though it was smaller than the previous quarter when the firm racked up record quarterly profits of $11 billion. Analysts say that despite strong memory chip sales and display profits, lower chip prices and a weak US dollar may have dragged down the company's fourth quarter earnings. Samsung says its overall profit will weaken in the first quarter of 2021 due to unfavorable currency movements as well as the cost of new production lines. Meanwhile, South Korea's top internet portal operator Naver cites sales in 2020 soared more than 21% on the back of the non-contact trend amid the coronavirus pandemic. Its operating profits also jumped 5% to $1.1 billion, and its net profit increased more than 110%. This was largely due to record-breaking earnings in the fourth quarter of last year, thanks to solid growth in its e-commerce, online payment, and content businesses. Driven largely by its search platform, fintech, and cloud sectors, Naver's Q4 sales in 2020 jumped around 28%, while operating profits edged up more than 17%. Content sales also saw a 21% increase as Korean webtoons expanded globally. Kim Sung-min, Arirang News.
In a ranking of the least corrupt countries in the world, South Korea rose last year to 33rd place. It's risen 18 spots in the last 3 years. This is in the latest corruption index by Transparency International, which emphasizes how corrupt governments around the world have undermined the response to COVID-19. On a scale of 0 to 100, 100 meaning very clean, South Korea scored 61 points. The agency highlighted that the country is an example of significant improvement. Topping the index were Denmark and New Zealand at 88 points, while the United States had its worst score since 2012 at 67. South Korea's consumption of rice fell to a record low last year as diets continued to become more westernized. According to Statistics Korea, the average person in the country consumed 57.7 kilograms of rice, a decline from a year earlier of 2.5%. Rice consumption has been declining year after year, and so this is only half of the amount people ate 30 years ago, back in 1990. Consumption of other crops like beans and potatoes saw an increase of more than 6%. The South Korean city of Jeonju has created an advanced consumer computer simulation to see what the effects would be of undertaking various infrastructure, safety, and environmental projects, like what would happen if they planted 10 million trees. This digital twin of Jeonju also enables people to take virtual tours of the city. Jeong has more.
Trees are planted and buildings are built in seconds. Like a super detailed version of a simulation game SimCity, changing an entire city in just one sitting is possible through a 3D virtual replica called the digital twin. South Korea's central city of Jeonju in Jeollabuk-do province is working with LX, a state-run company that uses geographic information to use this digital twin technology for its urban projects. One of them is a project to plant 10 million trees in the city based on the results of digital simulations.
At the moment, this area outside Jeonju City Hall is mostly empty with very few trees, but it is one of the places where the digital twin technology is being used to create a cyber forest, simulating how leafy the area could become in the near future.
The city has initiated this project to cool the temperature of the area as it has been suffering from the heat island effect.
Through virtual simulations, expected outcomes of planting the trees, including the amount of shade and the reduction in fine dust and noise, can be known in advance without actually planting the trees.
By using the digital twin to help control the spread of viruses and fight fires, Jeonju expected to enhance public safety as well. Another project is virtual travel.
Being able to reproduce the city and people to immerse on some of the experiences, on discovering some of the attractions, like the Royal Portrait Museum or many of the Hanok attractions. I think it can bring more people in the future because people fall in love already.
At the event, participants put on virtual reality goggles to enjoy a bird's-eye view of Jeonju and play games at the traditional Hanok village.
The government plans to invest around 500 billion won by 2022 in projects using twin technology and expects these to create roughly 5,000 jobs.
The government plans to apply the digital twin technology to 5 other regions this year and extend it to the whole nation as the foundation for its smart city goals. Jeong, Arirang News, Jeonju.
Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Kim Se-won, Professor of Economics at Ewha Women's University. Professor Kim, good afternoon, and thank you for coming on today.
Good afternoon, Devin.
Well, the Federal Reserve is holding the year's first meeting of the FOMC, and it's decided to keep interest rates where they are. Jerome Powell saying bond buying is going to continue, and that will have ample warning before any tapering or rate hikes begin. Tell us more about the Fed meeting, Professor.
The U.S. Fed kept its easy money policies in place, saying that business activity has softened with the resurgence of COVID-19 cases, but hoping the rollout of vaccines will tame the pandemic and heal the economy. And then Fed reconfirmed that they will try to boost the economy as much as they can. So until the end of this year, Fed 0% key interest rate and bond purchase program worth $120 billion a month will be continued.
And stocks on Wall Street saw a big decline overnight. It seems in part on the Fed talking about the recovery, as you referenced, being more modest now. Also, the very strange situation with GameStop and the shorts there going on with the online sort of activists there. So the market could see a pullback soon, some say. This was the biggest drop on the Dow since October. What's the story in the global markets?
U.S. market dropped well over 2% yesterday amid concerns about the COVID-19 vaccine distribution and disappointments on Fed's view on U.S. economy. New variants of the COVID-19 virus are showing around the world, putting fresh pressure on governments to get their populations vaccinated. And AstraZeneca, one of the producers of vaccine, has said there is a problem at European factory procedure. So that all these raise concerns on the distribution of vaccines. And U.S. Fed's negative views on U.S. economy with still slow employment recovery and rising inflation pressure were another negative factors to the market. So Dow Jones Industrial decreased by 2.1%, and Nasdaq also decreased by 2.6% yesterday.
It was a similar story today in the Korean markets. We got about a minute left, Professor, so tell us what happened on the local markets.
Domestic market also dropped, larger size today, and this drop is much affected by U.S. market disappointing situation. Kospi dropped by 1.7%, and Kosdaq also decreased by 2.5% today. In both markets, individual investors bought stocks, but foreign investors and domestic institutional investors, a massive sale dropped the market in the large scale.
All right, Professor, we'll have to leave it there for today. Thanks so much for sharing your insights.
Thank you very much.
And that does it for this newscast. Thank you for watching.